Welcome to IGC 1 Element 3. So, welcome to Element 3 for IGC 1, Managing Risks, Understanding People and Processes. This is one area that has to do with the arrangement part. If you look at the three parts of health and safety policy, and also the management of health and safety, looking at the element of health and safety management system, looking at the OAA. So we're going to be looking at describing the concept of health and safety culture and how it influences performance, summarize how health and safety culture at work can be improved. We're going to be summarizing the human factor which positively or negatively influence behavior at work in a way that can affect health and safety. We're going to explain the principles of risk assessment process, discuss typical workplace changes and that have significant health and safety impacts and ways to minimize those impacts. We're also going to be describing what to consider when developing and implementing a safe system of work for general activities. We're going to explain the role, function, and operation of a permit to work system. We're going to discuss the typical emergency procedure, including training and testing, and how to decide what level of first aid is needed in our workplace, in the workplace. Now, health and safety culture. Health and safety culture. By definition, the safety culture of an organization is the shared attitude, values, beliefs, and behavior. Shared attitude, values, belief, and behavior relating to health and safety. It could be positive or negative. Please note. Now, relation between culture and performance. Positive culture and negative culture. For positive, people think that safety is important. Safety is considered in all management decision making. People work safely because they want to, not because they are told to. Because to care for their life and life of their colleagues, knowing fully well that whether money or no money in their pocket, they have to return home safely because their family needs them to return back home, which is very important. All workers are positively influenced by this pair thinking and behavior. For example, when you have positive safety culture, this behavior is is seen or easily noticed among colleagues. Now let's look at the negative culture. A lot of people think that safety is of low priority. Safety is not considered in decision making at any level. Such places where management give attention more to productivity and the emphasis on safety, and it's usually disastrous. Citing the case of Papa Alpha, Mikando Prospect, and so many other instances. People will only work safely if they are told to and think that they will be caught and punished if they don't. All workers are negatively influenced by this pair thinking and behavior. Having said that, let's look at indicators used to assess culture. Please note these indicators. Accident and the standard of investigation as well under accident. What about sickness rate, absenteeism? All these are indicators. Staff turnover, where you have hire and fire, rampant. People are leaving the company either because of one health or health and safety issue. If probably they are the safety of the workers are not put in, are not it's not paramount in the mind of the management. All right. Compliance with safety rules. These are indicators. Workers' complaints about condition. All these are indicators used to assess culture. If they are on the positive side, that means you have good accident investigation. There are low sickness rates. There are low absenteeism. People don't get as what to make somebody leave work, another person get hurt or somebody is sick. All right, people don't leave the organization. All right, compliance with safety rules, they comply with safety rules, then you tend to call that a positive safety culture. But if it's a negative side, then you know that the system, is operating with a negative culture, which in no time will lead to accidents or diseases. Now, influence of peers. Put people together in group. What will occur? Interaction will occur. Influence will be exerted. A hierarchy forms, right? Known as pecking order. Norms and behavior are established. Peer group pressures is exerted. Seeing cliques and all that. A good indicator of health and safety culture. Peer group pressure can be harnessed to encourage good safety related behavior. And peer group pressure could also be negative. So we're looking at positive here. Now, group exercise. What factor could result in deterioration of organizational health and safety culture and hence safety performance? Look at it critically, think about it. What could bring about this? When safety culture is poor, when management are not committed, when there's apathy among staff, looking at reporting of accident or incident and what have you. So, improving health and safety culture. Management commitment and leadership. Senior management set policies. They also set priorities and targets. They must inspire and motivate. Yes, they set policy, they drive the system, they sign that one-page document showing the direction that the organization wants to, and they provide resources to ensure that the system works and runs. Because safety without management commitment is zero, no matter how you try. So their leadership cascades through the organization, but be visible. That means they are around us. They also behave safely by showing example. Involved in safety meetings because they know firsthand what are the issues and that needs to get attention, what needs to be closed out, concerns and all that. Because that's where you get feedback from workforce and all that. Doing safety tours and audit. You want to go for safety tours and audit to ensure you see on the spot assessment of how things are. So there are some things that probably will take weeks to get to your attention. You just on the spot approval and all that to ensure that thing is closed out, is given priority, because that will help you to see and also help you to interact with the workforce to know their needs, their concerns, and all that. Promoting changes to improve safety. All right, bring innovation, bring things that ensure that the workplace is safe as per what the law requires. And of course, if your workplace is safe, your workers' morale is high, productivity is high, more money goes into your pocket. Enforcing rules through the use of discipline when people are found to have broken the rules. Now, competent workers. Who is a competent person? A competent worker or competent person is someone who has sufficient training, skills, experience, and knowledge. All right, looking at the acronym KATE, and perhaps other attributes such as attitude or physical ability to be able to carry out their jobs safely. Group exercise. Identify few examples of workplace communication from the following categories: verbal communication, written communication, graphic communication. What are the merits and limitations of each method? We're going to be seeing all these in the next couple of slides. Please pay attention to this section. So, verbal communication. What are the benefits? It's personal, one-on-one. It is quick, it's direct. It checks understanding. Do you understand what I'm talking about? You get a response from the person, either yes or no, and you get feedback immediately. For share view where I think somebody is saying something to you. Okay, these are what are your views. I think we can do it this way and all that. You get instant response. Additional information, body languages and all that. What are limitation? Language barrier. The man is a Frenchman and you are an Englishman. Lepas and all that. You can't hear. Jargons when you are speaking big dramas. At the end of the day, the person cannot comprehend. Background noise. If you have noise, you have machines at the background making noise, reverse alarm and all that, beacons and all, you cannot hear well. Poor hearing, somebody who has a defect, disability hearing. I encountered a safety manager quite one time where we worked on a project and he said, Chris, speak louder, I'm a half deaf man. And he uses hearing aid. Ambiguity, when you use big grammar that are confusing. Missing information, when information has been distorted. Some vital information are missing, and that will bring about uh, poor or ineffective communication. Forgetting information, somebody told give an information to instruction to, the person forgot part of the information, part of the instruction. No records, of course. You can't document a conversation or just verbally, that occurred verbally. Poor quality or telephone or public address system. If the quality of telephone, maybe network is bad, or the PA has reciprocal issues, you cannot hear well. What about written communication? What are the benefits? Permanent record, reference, you can also reference to, you can always retrieve it. Can be written carefully for clarity. All right. Wide distribution relatively cheaply through notice boards, through safety meetings and all that, you can distribute it. Limitation: it is indirect. It may not address a particular person. Time: it takes time to construct it. Jargons and abbreviations: if you do abbreviations, people might not get your shorthand, people may not get what you are abbreviating. Impersonal: may not be addressed to a particular person. So ambiguous: may not be read, or somebody may not see it or notice it on the notice board. It may also be defaced. Language barrier may be written in English, but somebody who speaks Arabic and writes in Arabic may not understand it. Recipient may not be able to read, for those who are illiterate. No immediate feedback, you cannot question it. All right. For those who have impaired vision, may not be able to read as well. Now, graphic communication benefits: it is eye-catching, visual, like you see in this sign. This is an inflammable sign. Looking at the 2015 uh, update on hazardous chemical label signage. No language barrier, jargons free because it communicates. It's eye catching and communicates. Everybody can see that this is a fire sign, a flammable sign, and all that. Conveys the message to a wide audience. What are limitations? The message may be simple. It may be expensive to print. May not be looked at. Yes, no matter how eye catching it is, if somebody is distracted, may not see that sign. Symbols or pictograms may be unknown if somebody is not trained to recognize different type of pictograms, different type of symbols, what they mean, or what they are communicating. May just see as something like a type of fire and all that. You cannot interpret what it is. Feedback. All right, there are no feedback. You can't start talking to a sign. You can't ask questions. For those who have impaired vision, may not be able to see. Broadcasting methods: notice boards, posters and videos, digital media like uh, radios and all that. Toolbox talks, right? Memos and email, worker handbook. All these are method of cascading message, a method of broadcasting messages. All right. Of course, in workplace we must have notice boards, posters, we have videos, we have digital media, we have tools, toolbox talks, memos, and emails, worker handbooks. Now, what are the merits and limitations of using safety posters as a form of propaganda? Okay, like what we just saw in the previous slide, right? What we just saw in the previous slide, which is this. So this is the answer to that question. Cooperation and consultation. What is the difference between consulting and informing workers? When you consult workers, you seek their opinions, you hear from them, you get feedback, two-way communication. When you're informing, you're taking a decision and you're just passing across an information. That's what it means. So consulting is two-way exchange of information or opinion between employer and employee. Informing is one-way flow of information to the employee. Typical issue to consult on: introduction of new measures affecting health and safety, appointment of new advisors, health and safety training plans, introduction of new technologies. Okay, all these are issues that you consult on, or management consult with their workers on and their representatives. Method of consultation: direct consultation. Employer talk to each worker and resolve issues through their workers' representatives like their union and other. Committee is formed to represent workers. Regular meetings to discuss and resolve issues. Members may have rights in the law. Now, what makes an effective committee? What makes an effective committee? Think first. Try to think. For a committee to be effective, of course, you know that there must be presence of the management team or member of management, all right, who will help to take decisions, and who will be in that committee, who will take minutes, what are going to be the actions on issues raised, how they're going to be closed and followed up, and all that, meeting period, and all that. All this makes for, we'll see the answers in the next slide. Who is on the committee? Also, we must have a management team member. How often the committee meets? Who will act as chairperson? What authority the committee will have? Because if it's a powerless or toothless bulldog committee, then you can conclude that whatever decisions or agreement have reached, that it will not fly. What will be discussed? How the discussion will be recorded for the minutes of meeting and all that. How issues will be followed up? Who will follow them up? And with whom will follow them up and all that? How do you get feedback on issues being followed up and the clear status and all that? Issues that may be considered for health and safety committee forum: study of accident and disease statistics, review of reports from active monitoring. That's for 4 things go wrong. We're looking at element 4. See monitoring, active monitoring, and reactive monitoring. Examination of safety audit report, consideration of reports and information from HSC, consideration of reports submitted by safety reps, provide assistance in development of procedures and policy. These are what committee needs to decide upon. Monitor the effectiveness of training. This training that the company is organizing, how effective it is. Looking at where before the training, what is the trainable, after the training, how things have changed, what have there been a remarkable improvement on either in reduction on probably reduction in at-risk behavior and all that. Yes, we help them to monitor. Monitor and improve safety communication. Now, training. Health and safety training is the planned formal process of acquiring and practicing knowledge of skills in a relatively safe environment. I take it again, health and safety training is the planned formal process of acquiring and practicing knowledge and skills in a relatively safe environment. It is planned, it is formal process of acquiring and practicing knowledge. The former, it is also planned, right? Process of acquiring and practicing knowledge and skills in a relatively safe environment. Training has a dramatic effect on safety-related behavior. Without training, workers try to do their jobs by copying others. They want to, because they don't know what they're to do, they look at others, to try to follow up. Doing the job the way they think is best. To do the job the way they think is the best. And that may not be, the right way. Training helps workers to understand hazard and risks, rules and precautions, emergency procedures, who to contact with concerns, limitations and restrictions, personal safety responsibilities, consequences of breaking rules, including disciplinary procedures. Training will help you to have a better understanding of all this. Now, training opportunities. Of course, when you engage staff or you have visitors coming to your workplace or you have contractors, you have to train them. When your staff is changing job, new hazards, following a change in that job, for instance, you are taking a staff from one department to another. But the department he is going to have some peculiar hazards. Maybe somebody moving from electrical to mechanical department or workshop or warehouse, as the case may be. So the hazard pose at various warehouses differs. Process change. New hazards here with new ways of working. When you change the process, the process you introduce have their own hazards. They're different from what they used to have. So you have to ensure that training is carried out to close that gap. New technology. New hazards here with plants and machinery. New legislation, introduction of new legislation. For instance, at some point in time I said how long was used to fight fire, but after I discovered that some content in that chemical has the capability to deplete ozone layer or deplete ozone layer. It emerges some greenhouse effect that depletes the ozone layer. It was banned. So you have to, whenever you are trying to implement a law or you have to carry out some training, let it be in accordance with what the law prescribes. Induction training, health and safety policy could be the subject you look at. You also look at emergency procedure in case of any emergency, what you need to do, what is expected of you, where your muster point and all that. These are typical issues that are contained in an induction form. First aid, specific site hazard and control, welfare facilities, safe movement, accident and incident reporting, consultation agreement, safety rules, personal protective equipment, safe working and permits, looking at procedures and all that. Risk assessment, GSA, responsibilities of individuals, who is responsible for what, who are the fire marshals, who are the PA guys or radio room operators, security department, person in charge and all that, as the case may be. And then we also look at disciplinary procedures. All these subtopics are covered in your induction form. Human factors which influence safety-related behavior. Now, human factors influencing safety-related behaviors are the job, the organization, and the individual. The job, the organization, and the individual. For the design factor, looking at the safety culture. Is it positive? It's negative. If it's positive, it has influence. If it's negative, it also has negative influence. Commitment and leadership. If management are committed, demonstrate commitment, drive the system, provide resources, ensure that the workplace is safe, ensure that workers know their roles and responsibilities, they are visible, they go for tours, they go for meetings, safety meetings, they delegate, and their policies are effective, then you see that things go well. Resources, they provide the resources, and then if their work patterns, looking at resources as well, the human capital, the machines, the finances, and all that, what have you. Work patterns, are they working shifts, are they, and all that. Communication, if there are communication, do people know their role, do they know their job description, and all what have you. Level of supervision, if it's good, you see it shows. If it is bad, it also shows, and that will be characterized with accident, ill health, and what have you. Peer group pressure in such organization also influences behavior. When workers are consulted and they are carried along and they are involved in decision making, they see that decision and that decision reached as their own and becomes effective. But if they are not consulted, then it will also affect their behavior negatively. Training. When you train people and you keep training people, they keep doing things safe and they are professional as they go by. Job factor. What about the tax? Is it a repetitive tax? What kind of tax? If the tax is too cumbersome and enormous, it also affects behavior. It's an OP tax that you have a short time frame to deliver. It also has an effect. Also, workload. People carry out more than what they are capable of doing. Looking at their capacity, I know of a man who has stress. Once he gets to that stress level, his system shuts down, he cannot work again. So doctor gave an advice and gave a written note that this man should be placed on certain jobs. There's some jobs that are not good for him to embark upon. Now, display and control, all these also have influences on behavior. Then procedures, looking at procedures, permits, looking at various procedures in the workplace. All this has influences on human behavior. What about the individual factors? Competence. The man is trained and he knows his onion, having knowledge, ability, training, and experience. Skill, personality, has good attitude, is motivated. That's the thing that makes that is making the person do what they do. Reward incentive, it could be positive and also be negative. So when you ask what motivates you, you know what does that. So all these have way of influencing somebody's or behavior in the workplace. Attitude, a person's point of view or way of looking at something, how they think and feel about it, can be changed by educating and training. High impact intervention, enforcement, consultation, and involvement. Put all this into action, you're able to modify or change an attitude. When you keep training and educating someone, they start dropping old practices, old obsolete ideas or obsolete ways of doing things, and they begin to embrace new ones. High impact interventions. All right. Enforcement. Sometimes you need to ensure that people uh, do what they are told, or else they they get sanctioned. And also consult when I know that issues that boil that concerns me, I will consulted about it. I see that process as my own, and I tend to give meaningful contribution to it. But if I am not consulted, then it also influences my behavior in a negative light. Then involvement, they also will involve workers. Then risk perception, the way a person's brain interprets information sent to it by their senses, looking at sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Now, you will be shown the following slide for 20 seconds. You are asked to count the number of F's. The time starts now. Finished files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of many years. You've done 8 seconds already. 9, 10. You've done 15 and 20. I'm going to be changing this slide now to reveal the answer. So there are 6 F's in this exercise. This is the first one. This is the second one, right? This is the third one. This is the fourth one. This is the fifth one, right? And this is the sixth one. So if we say race perception is the way somebody's brain interprets what they feel, what they see, what they touch, and all what have you. While in my classes, most times people will mention 5, mention 3, that is what their brain saw, what their brain were able to count, and that's what they interpreted. So factors that can distort a person's perception of hazards and risk. Of course, illness. When somebody is ill and the person is on probably medication, that will also make him not to have focus on conversation or adequate conversation. Stress. I talked about that man who doctor had to give him a written note that he should be placed on light duty and not to be stressed. Fatigue, drug and alcohol. Of course, when you're under the influence of all this, it can impair your sense of judgment. Previous experience, training and education, use of PPE, workplace conditions, e.g. high noise level. All these affect your risk perception. Risk assessment. Now, we'll be looking at some keywords and phrases. Hazard is something that has a potential to cause harm, which could be physical, chemical, biological, economics, and psychological. What about risk? The likelihood of harm occurring in the combination with severity of the foreseeable harm. Chances that a child will fall from a table, and the combination of severity with the severity of the. If a child falls from a table, if a table that is like 2 meters high, the child can die. Maybe an infant of 6 months, have a fracture and all that. But that same height, if another fall from there, of course he will support himself and have a wound die. So that's to tell you, for a child the severity will be more, while for an adult it may be less. Okay. Consider a specific hazard and discuss in groups the differences between hazardous properties of the activity, article, or substance and the risk of harm occurring. Risk profiling. We're looking at keywords and risk profiling. The process of identifying and assessing the range of risks that threatens an organization along with recognition of their likelihood and probable impact. The current risk management control in place and the identification and prioritization of further control measures. This is what we know what's known as risk profiling. Risk assessment, a formal process of identifying preventive and protective measures by evaluating risks arising from a hazard, taking into account the adequacy of any existing control, and decide whether or not the risk is acceptable. Formal process of identifying preventive and protective measures. So for instance, you have identified a particular hazard and you're trained on how to identify hazards. Okay, and then you are able to look at the hazard. If they are exposed, what would be the extent of damage that may uh, pose a threat. Looking at the existing controls, if the controls are able to mitigate that hazard should it occur, then you can proceed. But if it's not, you have to risk assess and ensure that you are able to bring it down to as low as reasonably practicable, and then make it to an acceptable level. Okay, risk profiling. Each organization will have its own risk profile. The risk profile examines the nature and level of threat faced by organization, the likelihood of those adverse effects occurring, the level of disruption and cost associated with each type of risk, the effectiveness of controls in place to manage those risks. All these must be put into consideration. That will help you now to prioritize and categorize risks, whether they are low or high or medium, as the case may be. The outcome of risk profiling will be that the risk has been identified and prioritized for action. The right control measures have been identified and implemented, and minor risks have not been given disproportionate priority. The risk profiling process. Identify the risk that threatens the organization. Identify the health and safety impact and the business impact associated with each threat. Identify how well each threat is controlled. Identify the likelihood of each threat happening and prioritize the threat, whether it is low, medium, high. What is the purpose of risk assessment? One is to prevent death and personal injury. Other type of loss incident, breaches of statute law, the cost of loss, right? Cost of loss. When a risk assessment is said to be suitable and sufficient, it must meet the following criteria. Please note suitable and sufficient. It is examinable. It must identify significant risks, those risks that are capable of causing harm. It must enable employers to identify and prioritize control measures. Those control measures they are going to be applying must be in compliance with the law. Remember the case of Halon. Appropriate to the nature of work. You cannot use the relative assessment for electrical work. It must be appropriate to the nature of work, proportionate to the risk, and it must be valid for a reasonable period of time. Now, looking at sources of information, please note this. When you hear sources of information as plural, sources means plural. So you must have internal or external. If also pay attention to the bracket when you're asked a question, look at what is inside the bracket. You can see bracket 2, bracket 6, bracket 8, bracket 10, bracket 20 as the case may be. So if you have source of information, all right, in an organization, and you have bracket 10, so you must have 5 internal and 5 external. If it is they are asking you directly for internal source of information, then you are able to write the number of information, number allocated at in the bracket. Okay. So if it's external, that was also specific. Then list all internal and external sources you can you can think of and discuss them. Okay. These are the 5 steps of risk assessment, where we look at an acronym that says I squared E R squared.